on the anniversary of the first woman's murder. What a classy guy. I hope someone writes a book about he was beaten to death with his own book at his own book signing. I'd buy it. I put the book down. Baby steps. At this rate, I'd get through the book in a touch under a decade. I grabbed another beer from the cooler and decided while I was there I might as well grab two. Did I mention the cooler came with the chair and is by default attached to the chair? Well, it is. I knocked back the two beers and chased them down with egg salad. With my stomach content and the alcohol finding its way into my bloodstream, I decided to take another crack at the book. It was almost noon, and I was behind on my 3-word-a-minute quota. I found the first page and began reading. Autumn in Maine is like nowhere else. The leaves fall from the trees, a harvest gold, and trickle to the ground, a deep cherry. The lobster catch is at its peak, fishermen's cages teeming with the vermilion crustaceans. The sun wakes a nation, crawling across the Atlantic, a refulgent auburn. Last October, Maine was blanketed in red. Not by the leaves, not by the lobsters, not by the sunrise, but by the blood of 8 young women. Truly, last autumn in Maine was like nowhere else. I peeled the label off the beer bottle, smoothing it out like a crisp dollar bill, and thought about the last sentence. Truly, last autumn in Maine was like nowhere else. I had to credit Mr. Toombs. He may lack all levels of morality, but his writing did capture the solemnity of the period. It was around this time last year when the first woman was found. I'd been living in Philly at the time, and the murder had earned a small write-up on page 18 of the Philadelphia Inquirer. I remember this distinctly because it was the first time anything from Maine made the paper. Maine's papers were a different story. In a state with the lowest crime rate in the country, finding a woman in 30 pieces was front-page news. One of the lesser papers, the Waterville Tribune, ran an article written by none other than investigative journalist Alex Toombs. The paper was on the verge of bankruptcy and had nothing to lose by running Toombs's vivid and grotesquely accurate accounts of the murders. The newspaper sold more copies in October than it had the entire 9 months prior. After the massacre ended, or as I like to say, went on medical leave, this Toombs character had publishers throwing themselves at him, as to say, gold bars. The book already climbed to number 5 on the New York Times bestsellers list, and nearly every person I'd talked to had either read it, was in the process of reading it, or was reading it for the second time. My sister even said it wasn't half bad. I'd been calling her Judas all week. I was interested in how Toombs described the body of the first victim, and after skimming 5 pages, I found what I was looking for. Called the county by most New Englanders, Aroostook covers 6,453 square miles and grows more potatoes than any other county in the United States. Sitting amidst 2 of these square miles was a small, functionally Spartan farmhouse. By noon on October 2nd, the once tame farmhouse had been transformed into the largest crime scene in Maine's 350 years of existence. Bangor Chief Medical Examiner, Dr. Caitlin Dodds, described the scene simply as sickening, just sickening. It was truly Johnny Appleseed meets Jack the Ripper. The victim's body was scattered throughout a half-acre radius, severed into more than 30 definitive pieces. The most disheartening revelation came when the victim's abdomen was unearthed. The blonde-haired, blue-eyed medical examiner said it was immediately evident the victim was pregnant, except the baby or fetus was absent. Less than 30 feet away was the victim's unborn child. I tossed the book against the railing of the boat, and it came to rest in teepee-like fashion. This was the explicit reason I didn't want to read the book in the first place. Now I had the image of an unborn baby lying in a field in my mind. I grabbed another sandwich, bologna and cheese, and concentrated on a less depressing image, specifically Dr. Caitlin Dodds. I think there was an unwritten rule that if you were a woman in law enforcement, you had to be unattractive, stiff, and named Mel. Dr. Caitlin Dodds was the exception to this rule. She was a stunner. I closed my eyes and fell asleep with the good doctor on my mind. Chapter 2. When I opened my eyes, I was blinded by the sun directly overhead. There wasn't a cloud in the sky, and the day star seemed to take up half the seamless cerulean. We were in the midst of one of Maine's renowned Indian summers, and the temperature was around 70. I took a deep breath of the crisp ocean air, which was reminiscent of eating a saltine between gasps on an oxygen tank, and gazed